if you're advertising to someone, it's like, hey, you in the crowd, nobody turns around. But if you say, hey, Andrew, you're an accountant, you go, oh, yeah, that's me. Are you after? So you really need to shout out, or you need to find who it is you're trying to target.
Today we've got Andrew Jeffers from Shuriken Consulting. Welcome, Andrew.
Wow, thanks so much for having me. It's great to reach out in these times and have a bit of a chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Andrew, I'm interested. Tell us about kind of your story, Shuriken Consulting, what you do, and kind of how it all started.
Okay, where do I start without incriminating people? So at the age of 10, I was sitting across the kitchen table doing balance sheet reconciliations with Dad, mainly because he had nobody else. And he's like, "There's the ruler, there's a pen. I'm going to call out a number, and you need to tick it off." And I'm like, "Okay." So I think, look, that's where it all started. The old man was a suburban sort of an accountant. Interesting sort of fella. I mean, he's still around. I love him to death, but he was into the showbiz sort of accounting stuff. So he brought Dusty Springfield out to Australia. He was the accountant for a guy called Bobby Lim. I had Doug Parkinson, who's recently passed. He used to come over to our house as a regular. So life was always a bit interesting with my dad around. But back in the day, those sort of suburban accountants, they did everything from insurance to financial planning to arranging finance for your motor vehicles, for your houses, like everything. It was everything. So anyway, fast forward and finished, went to school and then didn't really know what to do. And then I got into, I got to uni and then I started working for Guess Who, the old man again. But this time we had some hardware shops and timber delivery businesses and a couple of sawmills. So I used to drive the forklift and do a bit of accounting work while I was at uni. Anyway, I left. He eventually fired me, which was probably a good thing. The wise man
what
himself,
happened?
he said, look, he said, look, I can't teach you anymore. He said, I've taught you as much as I know, so you've got to go out there and learn from someone else.
Great.
And if you want to come and work with me later, then, that's great. So he kind of moved on from the accounting sort of side. And really, he'd always been a real smart guy and, focusing on business and how to increase clients' businesses and, just how to do stuff. So anyway, went to uni, got a job, did my bachelor's, did my master's in professional accounting, got my CPA, and then quite luckily landed a job with a company called Abloy Security in Australia, who now are owned by, they own, Asa Abloy own Lockwood and a whole bunch of businesses, lock business around the world, largest lock company in the world, actually. And then I think I was 27, and then I moved into transport, believe it or not. So you asked me anything about a B-double truck or a taut liner or, how much tonnage you can put on a 20-foot container on a rail track up to Brisbane, I can pretty much answer the question for you.
Nice.
So, I don't know, maybe a bit eclectic, maybe a bit of ADHD mixed in with a bit of OCD, I don't know. But yeah, not your typical accountant. So anyway, then thanks to my grandfather, I have an Irish passport. So I decided to go over to the UK. Worked a bit around there, did some more study at the time, did a Master's of Science in E-commerce back in 2000. So it was pretty leading edge stuff back then. And I was still talking about Amazon back then as well, I remember. And then worked for a company called Intuit. So Intuit owned Quicken and QuickBooks. So if you've heard of those. So I was the CFO of Intuit Services Europe, and we had offices all throughout Europe. And this was pre-Euro, so it was pretty interesting. We brought over the QuickBooks or the Quicken product to Europe, translated it into a whole bunch of different languages with different currencies. I mean, you look back now and you say, like, what the hell was going on?
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, I know it was all over the shop. So anyway. Then fast forward that, came back to Australia and wasn't really doing much, and started a recruitment business with someone, and then I ended up going working into, of all places, digital media. So I was the chief finance officer for a company called AdStream that digitized television commercials, because television commercials still used to come out on those Betamax. You probably don't even remember those. They used to be
no.
No,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's all right. Yeah, and VHS and Betamax. They were the two sort of video players that came out at the beginning, but the film industry continued to use this Betamax stuff. But I'm seriously only talking like 2004. So all the TV commercials, and so this company, what they did was they got they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on putting internet pipes out to, fast ones, out to the TV stations, because even back then, like let's say you had Bathurst on a Saturday and you had the winners and everybody's taking the video of it. For you to get that footage around Australia, you had to send out cassettes. 2004.
Wow.
Yeah. So what these guys did was they got those, they digitized it, they paid for the pipes. I mean, stuff you could probably get from one of the providers now for less than $50 a month. They were paying like 200 grand. And and then so that was interesting. So AdStream was interesting, and then Census bought into it, and then Paul Ramsey, the late Paul Ramsey, bought into that as well. So he used to own Prime Television Network. Anyway, so so all over the shop again. So then I went, and just before that, I had actually been in education as well, believe it or not. So so there's a company in Australia called IDP, which was owned by all the universities, and they were basically a student recruitment business, and they had offices in 50 countries.
Wow.
Second only to Qantas in the number of worldwide offices. So probably nobody's even heard of IDP, but if you're overseas and you want to study medicine and you want to study on the east coast of Australia, and you wanted different lifestyle than being stuck in Sydney, you'd go to an IDP office and say, look, I want to do medicine, or here's what I want to go. And they say, oh, okay, we've got links with Newcastle, we'll do the introductions. And then they got paid a spotter's fee. So anyway, so that was another interesting role that I had. Anyway, so after the
how did you get into Shuriken?
Good point. So I left I had a bit of a family tragedy. My mum got cancer, and so I nursed her for a few years, and didn't know what I was going to do. And then I thought, might as well just start doing some CFO services, outsourcing what I did. Couldn't stand tax at all. The old man, obviously because I was scarred from my youth from my father, but anyway, so we started Shuriken, and first client we got was the Australian Rugby League. So they just needed a whole bunch of help in doing some reconciliations, and then we picked up the guy who designed the Beijing Olympic pool. Do you remember that? The bubble pool?
Yeah. Wow.
So I picked him up, and then really it was just about providing outsourced financial services. Then I kind of realized you probably need tax on top of that as well, because everyone's got a tax problem, but
necessary
not
evil.
everybody's got a succession planning problem or a KPI. It's always the nice conversation at the barbecue. What do you do? I do tax. Oh, that's interesting. I've got a question about that. So it's definitely a topic, because everybody thinks they pay too much tax. Anyway, so we started Shuriken, and then we started in financial services for some reason, as well as doing these other businesses. And it really was about doing accounting, doing the reconciliations, providing good, solid financial reports, doing cash flows, and giving people a roadmap on where they need to go. Now, as the chief finance officer of multinational companies, this is what you had to do. You can't turn up to the board with a spit out FMYOB and go, I think this is where we're at. So anyway, then I started landing, and I started bringing over companies from overseas. So we had companies from Israel, Cyprus, Jordan, China, Taiwan, Dubai, and America, overseas companies wanting to start business in Australia. So we just really got a speciality in that area. And I suppose this is something we'll talk about how to build and grow your business. Was there's thousands of accountants out there. There's hundreds of big firms out there. How did a little company that I started up get clients from all around the world?
Yeah,
And
how?
it was basically because we were really good in this niche, really good. So much so that we still do more work in that niche for FX and CFDs than any of the large accounting firms in Australia. We do, as a percentage, we do more in that industry. People walk in our front door and say, we know you guys know what you're doing in this area. Can you do it for us, please?
Fantastic.
So, yeah, build and grow your business, get a niche. It's kind of like if you're advertising to someone, it's like, hey, you in the crowd, nobody turns around. But if you say, hey, Andrew, you're an accountant, you go, oh, yeah, that's me. Are you after? So you really need to shout out, or you need to find who it is you're trying to target. Because as an accountant, I could put an ad in the Sydney Morning Herald because everybody needs tax done. But nobody's going to read it. Do you need your tax done? It's like, oh, yeah, fine. Are you a specialist doctor between the ages of 35 and 45 looking to increase your wealth?
Yeah, that level of specificity gets a lot of traction.
Well, it does, because then you're highly focused. The old, what is it, candle or the torch, analogy. Something's focused, the other one's not. If you're laser sharp focused, you end up getting what you're actually after, because you don't waste any time on the fluff around. It's like, I want to, well, I haven't bought a suit for a long time lately, but I haven't needed one. But if I go and buy a suit, I know exactly what I want. I want a single breasted, I want 2 pants, I want it wool, I want it dark color, I want, this particular size. I walk straight in, I'm out with, and on special. So I walk out within 10 minutes because I get what I'm after. But if I walk in there and I say, well, I'm not really sure what I'm after, then it takes you a long time. And if you can convert mentally that time is money that you spend on marketing, if you're razor sharp, the time that I've gone in to buy my suit, that's a whole lot less marketing dollars spent than trying to spend a whole lot of money trying to get a whole bunch of different people through the door.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew, what changed in you? Like, what took place within you to get you from, I guess, kind of generalist and that kind of like doing okay, but not having like a massively successful business, to now having that niche, to being super focused, and to having a really solid level of success.
To be honest, it was pure luck. To start with, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And when you start your business, it's anyone, anytime, anywhere, anyhow, any price. Okay. Now, I just happened to land something where I thought, hang on, I can get my head into this, and I solved a need. I found people from overseas who were starting these companies in Australia. They needed an accountant, they needed an auditor, they needed office space, they needed a 1-300 phone system, they needed a lawyer to do the compliance work, they needed a responsible manager. So basically what I did was I broke it down and said, okay, what are the pain points? What are these people doing? So I decided to contact who was in the neighborhood of that business. So I reached out to lawyers and I said, listen, I'm getting a bit of work, but these guys don't have a lawyer to do the compliance work. Can you help? And they said, yeah. I said, okay, well, let's go and talk to an auditor who does this work. Let's go and talk to the bankers who do this sort of banking. Let's go and talk to the insurance people who do the insurance in this space. So let's build, and I will give you a Japanese terminology because shuriken's actually a ninja weapon.
Yeah.
A karetsu. A karetsu is a Japanese name for a group of companies that work in unison with each other. And in Japan, they actually also have a little bit of cross ownership. So it's kind of like your gang, your team, your tribe. So what I did was I built a tribe. And I said, right, okay, so we're not exclusive. You can go and do work with somebody else, but you do this, you do this, you do this, I do this, I do this, you do that, you do that, you do that. We can all help each other by handing over the clients to each other because we're all providing a service. Now, it got so, you're going to love this. So I'm an accountant, right? We were picking people up. We were organising their visas. We were picking them up from the airport. We were putting them in temporary accommodation. They had a fridge full of food, okay? And one client, I even booked his missus in to have a baby at Royal North Shore Hospital.
Wow. The whole service.
The whole shebang, the whole 9 yards. right? It was extreme, and this is coming back from debits and credits, okay, just pluses and
Wow.
minuses. So, and then you get a reputation because it's like, well, hang on, have you ever heard of another accountant booking in their client to a hospital to give birth to a baby when they're new people from overseas and don't know anybody in the country? It just, yeah.
No,
So
absolutely not. That's phenomenal.
yeah, so it's extreme stuff. But what I did then was, and there's another little tale to the story, but I'm not going to go into it. We'll save that for another day. But I started up franchising my business as well. And didn't really work. It was a bit of a failure. Well, it wasn't a failure. It didn't work for us because under a franchise model, you can't dictate to people what they actually spend on the or what they charge clients. Okay, you can give recommended retail prices, but anyway, it helped more where we were. So what we did, we also saw that the industry in which we were working was really high risk. It's to be honest, it's a massive, sophisticated sort of financial product. It's heavily regulated. They just change things as the wind blows. Now, for an accountant, you think, well, change regulation is probably a good thing, but it just got all encompassing. So what we then did was, and this is, I suppose, another tale to the story is, don't be complacent. And I've got a mate of mine, Dale. He always says you're either green and growing or ripe and rotting. Okay.
I love that.
I mean, we're an ocean of motion. Our body is made up predominantly of water. If you go into the physics and you go into deep down into the physics, you have a look that everything is constantly moving. We're an ocean of motion, so your business needs to be the same as well. So what we did then is we went and said, you know what? We're really good in this space, but we're really good at customer service as well. And then we had a look at other accounting firms. And no disrespect to a lot of accountants, but accountants and lawyers traditionally, the lawyer a lot of the time, they're not a really customer service sort of industries. It's like, oh yeah, I'm busy. Oh, do you want some more work? Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah, but I'm really busy. Or you feel privileged that you can actually have time with the lawyer or the accountant because they're so busy. Doesn't really make you feel good. But so what we did was we then went off and we said, let's go and buy some accounting firms. Why not? Because obviously we've done it so much. Not. So we went and bought their first one, and gee, didn't we make a mess of that? It was.
What happened?
We really didn't know what we were doing. We kind of knew what we were doing, but we were dealing before with clients, that were spending 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 grand with us. And we moved on to buying a practice that probably had about 800 people spending like between 200 to 1,000 with us.
Wow.
Yeah, high volume and
Big shift.
But massive shift. And also, when we bought one of the practices, the pricing of the returns and that was pretty low. And I think we all can agree that you can't compete on both. You're either service or you're price. And if you're both, you're lying because it's just not possible.
Yeah.
And I think people want to be both, but they can't be both. It's either someone's going to be disappointed about the price or they're going to be disappointed about the service. They pay you peanuts and they expect massive stuff. I mean, if people are paying you peanuts and you miss a few things, you don't get back to them, they should sit down and go, okay, well, that's the cost of me getting it cheap and going down. Anyway, so we bought the first one, made a meal of that, and it's within 4 months. Obviously because we knew what we were doing now. Again, not. I'm just, like to do things not by halves. Anyway, so we bought another one, and then we kind of settled down for a couple of years, which I think was probably a better thing. And then we bought another one, and then we started to really get into the swing and know what we're doing. And if there's anything you can say, I think there was a book. I can't remember. I think it was Steve Covey, maybe in his books. Talking about this family during a famine, or there was no work, and they put their best clothes on and they walked up to this brick wall, and over the other side was potentially a way to go out and get more work, and they thought, oh well, we can't get over it. And so the father grabs his son's hat, and I could be telling the story totally wrong, but anyway, grabs the hat, throws it over the wall, and his son looked at him and said, what the hell are you doing? That was my best hat. He said, well, now we have a reason to get over the wall.
Ah, nice.
All right. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do and work out how you do it afterwards.
I like that. Yeah, that's good. And so what was it that made the buying of the accounting practices successful? Was it the fact that okay, great, we've done this, now we just have to make it work? Or like was there a collection
Yeah,
of
I
things?
think no, it was now we have to make it work, but it's also, again, us breaking down, okay, how can we provide better service? And to be honest too, how can we get rid of some clients? Or how can we move the clients onto somewhere else where they're going to be happy and we're going to be happy? Because most of the time, people are great people. And it's just sometimes you got the same vibration as the other person. You vibe. You see that. You can say, oh, I met that person. What a great person. Or you say, oh, I didn't really get that person. That's because you're on different frequencies.
Yeah.
And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. The key to it is finding somebody who's on your frequency and then working through it. I think the other thing too is just having absolute honesty with clients too.
Okay.
I always say to everybody when I first start with them, I said, guess what? I said, there's one thing I can guarantee. We are going to mess something up for you. And they look at me like, are you okay? Am I in the right place? I said, no, because if you're in business and I'm in business, we know things don't always go right. I said, but what I can guarantee is if things do get messed up, I will fix them real quick. Like real quick, we will sort it out. We are always evolving. We're making mistakes, but you can't make mistakes without moving forward. Mistakes are just proof that you're trying,
Perfect.
So, and the sheer honesty with that. And you know what? And it's kind of a two-edged sword because when something does go wrong, okay, you've already managed the expectation.
You have.
Because you've called them up and you've said, look, something's gone wrong, we've screwed up. They go, oh, that's okay. You told me that was going to happen.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And so, all right. Well, Andrew, what advice then would you give to business owners and CEOs who are struggling to break through to that next level? Because like there's been some gold in this so far. So for our listeners who are breaking through to that next level, feeling the pain, going through, the plethora of issues that come with growth, what advice would you give to them?
Oh, there's so many little things that you can do. And I could do you a list. So, the first thing is have good cultures and make sure everybody aspires to those cultures. The second thing is, keep your word, say what you do what you say. The third thing is show some pretty good leadership. The fourth thing is really understand what you're doing. I could rattle these off, but you know what? I'm going to tell you the one. And the one major thing that you need to do is a positive mental attitude. That if you have that, you're always on point. You're always looked at everything with a glass half full. When things come up, because when things, I think there's a poem called by Rudyard Kipling. If, I think it is. Don't quote me on that, but it might be. But it says something like, if you can keep your head when all around people are losing theirs, you'll do well.
Yes.
So even in chemistry, things are constantly trying to get stable. You got your protons and neutrons falling apart. If you can provide stability, and think about this in your life, think about this with your family, your kids, your parents, your grandparents, your finances, everything. Stability assists people to reduce fear and anxiety. Okay?
Absolutely.
Because if you've got a positive mental attitude, you can take on the stuff that's happening, which means you can think your way through the results. Okay, we've got this little paradigm constantly going in. I mean, if I was born in China, even though I had blonde hair, if I've got any hair left, I had blonde hair and blue eyes, I'd be born in China and I'd speak Chinese and I'd think nothing the less of it. We have these paradigms or these situations that we are born in and we create meaning to those. And we need to break through those paradigms just because anything's possible. Anything's possible so long as you can think that anything's possible. So yes, you need to have a culture. Yes, need to choose the right people. Yes, you need to have the right team around you. Like I said before, going out and finding that business. It's like a birth of an idea. When you have a new idea, you want people around who are going to encourage you. Yeah, you don't want people who are yes people saying, oh, that's fantastic, but you need the encouragement around you. So having a positive mental attitude and hanging out with other people with positive mental attitude is the way to go. The rest of it, yes, you have to learn. Yes, you have to go through things, write a list out every day, do a lot of reading, go watch the movie The Secret, go read some Bob Proctor stuff, Steve Covey, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Michael Lee Gerber, the E-Myth Revisited, the Tipping Point, just expand your mind, expand your brain, and understand that anything's possible. I think that's the key thing.
I love that. Yeah, thank you. There's some real good gold in that. And Andrew, if you could go back 5 years and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
Whoa, it's a two-edged sword. What I'd say to myself is just take stock of what you got.
Yeah, and
take stock of what you got.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is sometimes, like, I'm a very highly driven person. I always want more and more. And it's not about having more money. It's about helping more people, because we love helping people. We're actually setting up a foundation. Our greatest goal is going to be to provide financial education to every high school student in Australia for free.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's what gets me out of bed. That's what really helps me. I even though the old man was an accountant, the parents got divorced, times were very tough for our family growing up, and there wasn't a lot of stuff floating around in my younger years. And so I think I'm constantly pushing the boundaries and trying to do more and more and more. And sometimes that can get in the way of what you've actually got in front of you. And I think having that much passion and drive is fantastic, but also it can turn people off as well, because I suppose it's just make sure you've got time to smell the flowers on the way. Now, from my personal life, I do that all the time, because I spend a lot of time with my kids. They're my life. But in business, sometimes I don't think we pat ourselves, or I pat myself on the back for what we've achieved. It's just like, okay, well, that's done. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, there has to be time for celebration on the way through, because it's not just about me. It's about the team, and everybody else is actually taking that to the place.
Yeah, I love it. That's good.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I do, and I'm certainly guilty of that myself. Like, it's, you hit an amazing goal, and it's like, great, what's next? Instead of going, hey guys, look, we all hit this, and we did this together, and it was a great effort, and we've achieved something good. Let's actually stop and enjoy this, even for a few moments. But let's actually take the time to absorb what we've all accomplished.
Yeah, 100%. And I suppose because everybody's different and everybody's buttons are different, and levels of appetite are different, we need to cater for that. Now, and to be honest, to be critical of myself, sometimes I forget that, and I need to be pulled up and smacked across the back of the head sometimes. But that's okay. I'm open to it.
Nice. Andrew, just this last question. Go with me on it. Lion or elephant? Which one and why?
Oh, wow. Elephant. I never forget.
Yeah, nice. Why is that important?
I think the good thing about an elephant is the elephant is big and brutal, but equally also it can be gentle, loving, and caring. And while it never forgets, it still moves forward. And I think, again, I don't know who actually said it, but some historian or whatever, if we forget the sins of the past, we're condemned to repeat them. It's important to have absolute forgiveness for stuff, but the reason why I say never forget is not in a pessimistic or a derogatory or mean sense. It is, okay, we did that, we tried that, it didn't work, let's fix it, let's improve it, and let's move forward.
Yeah, nice. I love that. So, Andrew, just to finish off, can you give us a rundown of who you can best help? And if they want to get in touch, how do they do that?
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for that. So I'll just tell you a bit what we do. So we do everything. We do everything from just doing tax returns all the way through to being an outsourced CFO service. What I'm looking for is businesses between $500,000 and $2 million, where they want to have greater transparency of their business, because at the end of the day, the finances are the backbone to your whole business. I don't care whether you're a not-for-profit. Not-for-profit doesn't mean you don't make money. What it means is you create abundance to reinvest in your members. Okay. So businesses $500,000 to $2 million that are looking to grow, that want some financial transparency. We utilize a lot of technology, obviously, because of my qualifications in the past. And so, and people who are coachable, who really want, who are saying, you know what, I've been stuck in the mud for so long, I've had an accountant who's a great person, but they're so busy with the compliance, they're not helping me with the KPIs. They're not sitting down and challenging me about where the business is going forward. I need someone on my team who can give me a bit of that ideas and concept of where we can take this business going forward. You can contact me. I'm AJ at Shuriken, SHURIKEN.com. Or my personal mobile is 0450 825576. And I am always up for a chat. Even if it's a 5 or 10 minute, anybody can give me a call about anything. I'm always here to help. That's why I love what I do, is we help people.
Fantastic. And Andrew, do you have a website that we could have a look at?
Yes, we do. It's www.shuriken.com. We've got 5 offices around Sydney. As I said, we've got international clients. We've got mums and dads. We've got chippies, sparkies, pediatricians, you name it. We've got them. And we cater for anybody all over Australia. We can do everything remotely.
Fantastic. Andrew, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you for the value that you brought. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing what's next for you.
Ryan, thank you for having me on. I love what you're doing. It's great that you're getting this sort of stuff out and getting people on and doing what we do. You're helping people through meeting others, and we're helping people through what we do. So I'm very grateful. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you again, Andrew. Speak to you soon. Bye.
Okay, bye.